It's a question that lingers in the minds of many. Why is Africa, a continent bursting with natural wealth, still grappling with poverty? We're talking about a place that's home to vast mineral deposits, fertile lands, and abundant wildlife. It's like having a treasure chest but not being able to open it. It's frustrating, isn't it? Today, let's unpack this complex issue together because it's not as straightforward as it seems. To get started, please take just 1 second to like this video. Your support encourages me to continue creating this content. First off, let's consider the historical context. Africa has been shaped by centuries of colonialism, exploitation, and conflict. European powers swooped in, took control of resources, and left behind a legacy of division and instability. Countries were carved up without regard for ethnic or cultural boundaries, leading to tensions that still echo today. When the colonial powers left, they didn't just take the resources. They took with them the infrastructure, the knowledge, and the systems that could have helped these nations thrive. What remained were borders that often didn't make sense and governments that struggled to function effectively. Now, let's talk about governance. In many African nations, corruption runs rampant. It's like a disease that spreads through the veins of institutions, undermining progress. Leaders who should be focused on development often prioritize their own interests or those of a select few. When public funds are siphoned off for personal gain, it's the citizens who suffer. Imagine having all this wealth at your fingertips but being unable to access it because the very people in charge are lining their pockets instead. It's infuriating. Then there's the issue of conflict. Many African countries have been plagued by civil wars and unrest, often fueled by the very resources that should be a blessing. Take diamonds, for example. In some regions, they've become a curse, leading to violence and exploitation. The term blood diamonds didn't come from nowhere. Instead of fostering prosperity, these resources can lead to fierce competition and conflict, making it even harder for nations to develop in a stable environment. And let's not forget about the global economic system. Africa is often at the mercy of international markets. The prices of commodities fluctuate wildly, and many countries are dependent on a single resource for their economic survival. When global demand drops, so does their economy. It's like building your entire house on a shaky foundation. You can't rely on one thing to sustain you, yet many African economies do just that. This dependence makes them vulnerable to external shocks, leaving them in a cycle of poverty. Now we need to talk about education and infrastructure. Many regions still lack access to quality education and essential services. Without a well-educated workforce, it's hard to innovate and compete in a global market. Imagine trying to build a skyscraper without a solid foundation. You can have all the materials in the world, but if you don't have the skills to use them, what's the point? Furthermore, inadequate infrastructure, think roads, electricity, and internet access, hinders growth. It's tough to attract investment when the basics aren't in place. Another layer to this issue is the environmental challenges. Climate change is hitting Africa hard. Droughts, floods, and changing weather patterns disrupt agriculture, which is a vital sector for many African economies. When farmers can't predict the weather, they can't plan their crops, and when crops fail, it's families that go hungry. It's a cruel cycle, and it's exacerbated by the fact that many communities are already living on the edge. But here's the thing. Despite all these challenges, there's a spark of hope. Many African nations are working hard to change their narratives. There's a growing movement toward sustainable development, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Young people are stepping up, harnessing technology to create solutions tailored to their unique challenges. There's a burgeoning tech scene in places like Kenya and Nigeria, where young entrepreneurs are using their skills to build businesses that not only thrive, but also create jobs and uplift communities. And let's not overlook the power of unity. African nations are increasingly collaborating, whether through regional organizations or trade agreements. By coming together, they can leverage their collective resources and strengths. Imagine the potential if these countries pool their talents and resources instead of competing against each other. It's about building bridges, not walls. So, while the question of why Africa remains poor despite its riches is complex, it's essential to recognize the resilience and determination of its people. It's a journey, and progress may be slow, but it's happening. We need to shift the narrative from one of despair to one of hope and possibility. Africa is not just a continent of poverty, it's a land of potential, waiting to be unlocked. And it's up to all of us, whether we're on the continent or beyond, to support that journey toward a brighter future. Thank you for exploring with us here at the Corner of Curiosity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating content. As always, feel free to leave your curious questions and thoughts in the comments below. Until next time.